Hey guys, welcome back. It's time for another reaction video, and today we'll be reacting to biggest mega projects under construction in 2024. Before we jump into it, I'd appreciate it if you guys hit that subscribe button, and let's check it out.
The world is full of massive, groundbreaking construction projects, such as California's $130 billion high-speed rail, or Saudi Arabia's The Line, which we've been talking about for years at this point. But there are many more megaprojects around the world, such as the $95 billion Zhong'an Smart City. In just 7 years, they've built 3,000 buildings from the ground up. And their so-called digital roads collect...
That's like a whole city. That looks really, really cool so far, though. I know I haven't gotten far into the video, but this visually looks really cool.
Traffic data to calculate the fastest routes for firefighters and the police. These megaprojects are literally shaping our planet. So today, we uncover the biggest of them all. Hey, I'm Regis, and here are the most expensive megaprojects currently being built.
This is from the Megabuilds channel. I will have the link in the description below, so if you guys like this video, want to see more videos from Megabuilds, make sure to check the link in the description.
Start with our number 15 at an estimated cost of $11 billion. This is Germany's massive transport upgrade, known as Stuttgart 21. The idea here is to completely redesign Stuttgart's existing rail system by rotating the whole train station 90 degrees. Oh yeah, and they're moving it underground as well. Until now, trains could only enter and exit on one side, but by turning the station, trains will be able to pass through as they continue their journey. Instead of being the end of the line, Stuttgart will become part of a direct Paris to Budapest train line that the EU are working on to improve connectivity across the continent. The new station will be covered by 10 acres of public park and supported by 28 of these enormous chalice-shaped pillars. Each one needed, no joke, 350 metric tons of steel and 685 cubic meters of concrete to build. That's maybe why no one has ever attempted a design like this before.
It's like it's functional, but it's a piece of art at the same time. It's really cool. What I'm wondering is if they're doing a full 90-degree turn, how much are they able to do it without disrupting the existing service? At what point will it pose an issue with the existing service and transitioning to the new one? But it looks like a really cool project.
It's crazy expensive and time-consuming. Light will come from 23 enormous glass domes that open onto the park, making the station bright and open despite being underground. As well as the station, 56 kilometers of tunnels have been dug under the city. That might not seem particularly impressive, but Stuttgart actually sits on soluble rock like limestone, meaning that water erosion has created huge underground caverns and sinkholes. Tunneling through that took precise engineering and advanced techniques to avoid destabilizing the entire city above.
Anybody who does this type of construction, this tunneling, very brave people, because even with the modern technology we have today to prevent potential mishaps and issues, I mean, anything could go wrong and that could cave in, you know, like that, you know, and you're done. That's scary work.
But the planning of this project is honestly not going that well. Only recently, another delay was announced. It's now scheduled to go into operation in December 2026, which makes it 7 years later than originally planned and twice as expensive.
It's a huge endeavor, though.
Next up, we head across the Atlantic Ocean to the United States. This one's in California, and it's known as BART, which stands for Bay Area Rapid Transit District. It comes in just above Stuttgart 21 with a budget of $12.2 billion.
I've heard a little bit about this one. I've heard some pros and some cons, but the biggest thing I've heard is that it's taking forever, it's overpriced, and it's not a big resolution to the problem. Like, it's not really that helpful because it's such a short distance. I could be completely off on all those statements, but some of the stuff I've seen in previous videos and things is that it's a cool project, but it's really not going to alleviate as much of the traffic problems as they think, because it's not very well connected to other places. Maybe I'm wrong, though.
Phase 2 of the project is currently under construction and will extend the BART's Silicon Valley network under downtown San Jose all the way to Santa Clara. It's only 10 kilometers, but the new route will connect Santa Clara to the rest of the BART network and boost economic development all across the region. This line is expected to carry over 54,000 passengers per day once it's finished in 2036. Why so long?
See, 2036, like 12 years from now. for 10 kilometers, 12 years.
Well, the tunnel needs to be dug under densely packed urban areas, avoiding existing infrastructure like sewage and electrical systems, and causing minimal disruption to the local population. The Bay Area is also prone to earthquakes, so specialized construction techniques and strict regulations are also slowing things down. Traditionally, the subway would involve 2 tunnels, each with a single track, but in an attempt to minimize disruption, one larger tunnel will be used with space for both lines.
His point about the earthquakes, I would think that you couldn't do a project like this in California, period. Like, it just doesn't seem like it would be safe on any level.
It's called a single-bore tunnel, and it's the first time a system like this has ever been used for a United States subway. Tunneling is expected to run 24 hours a day to try and limit delays. Next up, we take a look at India. This is the Mumbai to Ahmedabad high-speed line. This project is set to be India's first ever high-speed railway, and at $15 billion, it's one of their biggest rail investments ever. This line will link the major economic hubs of Mumbai and Ahmedabad, and reduce travel time from 8 hours to just 2. The line will stretch over 500 kilometers, and run mostly on viaducts to avoid the roads, railways, rivers, and farms in its way. In densely populated
See, this is a project that makes sense. 500 kilometers versus 10.
in Mumbai, it will dip down and run in underground tunnels, with a 2-kilometer stretch even going under the sea. Despite it being one of Prime Minister Modi's flagship infrastructure projects, progress has been slow due to problems in land acquisition and construction only beginning in 2020. Nevertheless, the first stage of the line is due to open in 2026. That might seem pretty fast for a country's first high-speed railway, but India has some help. They've partnered with Japan to design, build, and even fund the project with a $12 billion loan.
Wow.
Back over to the United States for number 12, this time on the East Coast with the Gateway Program. We actually just released a pretty extensive video on this project in April, so we'll keep this part short. The Gateway Program is a $16 billion investment project designed to completely overhaul, repair, and future-proof rail transport between Newark, New Jersey and New York City. This is arguably the most important section of the Northeast Corridor, America's busiest rail line, but much of its crumbling infrastructure is over 100 years old. The Gateway Program will redesign bridges, stations, tunnels, and tracks to modernize the entire system, and all with minimal disruption to the hundreds of thousands of daily passengers. This is one of America's biggest rail investments ever, so definitely check out our deep dive video for all the details.
I'm gonna have to find that video.
At $19 billion, next up is a redevelopment program to completely modernize the biggest airport in the New York area, JFK. In 2023, the airport serviced 62 million passengers, a 12% rise from the previous year. But despite its popularity, JFK is old, overcrowded, and poorly organized. The current renovation aims to turn it into a state-of-the-art facility and increase capacity to 75 million people by 2030. Terminals 1 and 2 are being replaced by the brand new 260,000 square meter Terminal 1. With 23 gates, it'll deal exclusively with international flights and takes up half of the entire budget for this project. There are huge extensions planned for the other terminals, as well as a complete redesign of the surrounding road network. If that all goes well,
the road networks in and out of airports, I think, are equally as important as the airport itself, because that's where I feel like a lot of the congestion takes place. If you've ever had to pick somebody up from the airport and get in there to find them, sometimes that can be quite difficult, or dropping them off. Most of the time, at least here in Houston, if you're driving yourself and you're parking, there's plenty of options for that. But if you're trying to pick up or drop someone off at the airport, that can become a nightmare. Houston's Bush Intercontinental has been under construction for a while. Hobby's gone under some construction, so our airports have been going through similar projects where they're expanding, and it's been a bit of a nightmare with Bush.
JFK will seamlessly integrate international travelers into the New York metropolitan area. Construction was due to start in 2020, but stop us if you've heard this one before, it had to be delayed. Nevertheless, the project is scheduled for completion by 2030. The deadline on this one honestly seems a little tight, but we'll be sure to keep you updated on how it goes. At $25 billion, our number 10 is what many are calling the most complicated machine in human history. International Thermonuclear Experimental Reactor, or ITER for short. It's a massive international collaboration to recreate the nuclear fusion that happens inside the sun. The reactor is being designed as a proof of concept, meaning it won't actually be used to generate electricity. But if it works, the technology could eventually be rolled out across the world to produce huge amounts of energy with very little waste. It's kind of a big if though. Fusion on this scale has never been done before, and the technical challenge is enormous. To pull it off, temperatures inside the reactor need to reach between 150 and 300 million degrees Celsius.
I thought he was going to say 150 and 300 degrees, not 150 to 300 million. That would vaporize literally anything. That would, to me, would think everybody that's going on about climate control and global warming and all that kind of stuff, producing that much heat in one place seems like that would be damning to that area. I'm not a scientist, but that sounds like it could be risky for the environment.
10 times hotter than the sun. This is one of the most advanced projects ever undertaken, and with so much money going into it, it's also being called the most expensive experiment in the world.
What kind of materials are they even using that wouldn't just evaporate under those temperatures? Like, all this structure we're looking at right now, what's to prevent that from just melting the moment it goes live and those temperatures are reached? It's amazing the minds of the people who come up with this stuff, the engineers and the scientists and the creators who can come up with these ideas and then run all these models and tests with computers and things like that. But like he said, it's a very, very, very expensive experiment because it could completely fail.
At number 9, we have Australia's biggest ever investment in urban rail, the $25 billion Sydney Metro. Work is currently underway to build Sydney a brand new subway system, made up of 4 lines, 46 stations, and 116 kilometers of track. The network will bring the city together, changing the way that residents travel and integrating the central business district with the suburbs. High-speed driverless trains will run every 4 minutes during peak times, making it super efficient for commuters. But building all of this underneath Australia's biggest city isn't easy, especially under the world-famous Sydney Harbour. Digging underneath the bay.
It's crazy that they do all this stuff underground even. I mean, this is just insane. Like, it's like you see the project and you're like, oh, that's cool. They're going to build all these rails. And then you're thinking above the ground. And then they're like, nope, it's going to be underground. That's another thing. At what point do we keep doing all this underground stuff before it starts to take a toll on the planet and cause bigger issues? Hopefully it doesn't. But it just makes me wonder.
It required state-of-the-art technology, including this tunnel boring machine Kathleen, named after Kathleen Butler, the godmother of the Sydney Harbour Bridge. Kathleen dug 2 900-meter tunnels under the bay at depths of up to 40 meters below sea level. Each tunnel will have 1 subway line running through it, in what's called a twin-bore system. All of the tunneling was finished in 2020, and the first line actually opened the year before.
That's cool.
Phase 2 of the build, the City and Southwest project, is due to open this year, with the remaining 2 phases scheduled for completion by 2030. So if you're watching from Sydney, we'd love to hear how the new line has affected the city so far, and what you're expecting from this next phase.
I second that. You can comment on my video and let me know if you're in Australia and if you've gotten to experience these subways and how it's helped you.
Number 8 is one of the biggest private sector investments in Canadian history, LNG Canada. This is a gigantic $31 billion project in Kitimat, British Columbia, that will transform natural gas into liquid form and prepare it for export. The project includes a marine terminal and a rail yard, as well as 2 enormous storage tanks measuring 225,000 cubic meters each. Now, once it's operational, the facility will be able to process 14 million tons of liquefied natural gas, or LNG, every year. This could result in over $1 billion of revenue if you look at the average market prices today. The gas will be transported from northeast British Columbia in a 670-kilometer pipe before being liquefied and exported from Kitimat. Sales will mostly be to Asia, as its coal-heavy economies transition to greener alternatives. But several European countries have also expressed their interests. Suffice it to say, the potential profits from this project for Canada are huge. Commercial operations are expected to start in 2025, with recent reports saying that tests will start this year. Overall, LNG Canada could...
Talking about engineering again, I just look at these massive things. Like, how many minds have to come together to draw up plans for something like this? And what does all this stuff do? Like, there's all these pipes and things. I mean, like, obviously everything has a function, but it's just crazy that people can even think this stuff up, and then it effectively works the way it's supposed to work. It's very interesting, but also very crazy that we can do these things as humans. It's like a giant ant pile made from humans that's got obviously more function than an ant pile. But my point being, it's just like all these connecting tunnels and pipes and gadgets. I mean, I probably sound like an idiot right now if you're somebody who works at these places, but I find it mind-boggling. I find it really interesting that people can create this stuff.
Spell a new chapter for the gas industry in Canada, making them a vital player in the international market and shoring up domestic energy security. The effects could potentially be seen for decades to come. We're back across the Atlantic in France for number 7 with the Grand Paris Express. At a cost of $35 billion, this is one of the biggest infrastructure projects currently underway in Europe and involves an enormous extension to Paris's metro network.
Seems like so far a lot of these big plans for across the world are rails everywhere, which is kind of interesting that it's all taking place at the same time. I'm sure it's going to be helpful in most of these areas. I've never really traveled abroad, but that is one thing that I've always heard is that the rails and the things that are available there far supersede what we have in the U.S. I did a video recently talking about the plans for the one in Texas, which I hope goes through. Yeah, I like this stuff. I find it interesting.
4 new lines, 200 kilometers of track, and 68 new stations are being added to adapt the public transport system to the demands of the 21st century. The new lines will fully integrate the Charles de Gaulle and Orly airports, as well as Paris's vast suburbs with the city center. Construction here comes with all the usual challenges of building in a densely packed urban area. Things like utility relocation, heritage preservation, and complicated stakeholder management. But the Grand Paris Express has the added challenge of the 2024 Summer Olympics. The arrival of the Summer Games has forced construction to accelerate, particularly on the extension to Line 14, which will link Orly Airport with the city center.
All right, so since the Olympics just finished recently in Paris, that's if you're watching this on my main channel. If you're watching this on my other channel, who knows how long it would be before this video gets there. But if you were in the Olympics or visiting Paris during the Olympics, was this actively running and was it helpful for you?
This line will also link to the athletes' village, as well as the Olympic swimming pool and the main stadium, le Stade de France. Originally due to open in 2027, the extended Line 14 will now officially open 1 month before the Olympics, marking a massive success for this project. As the CEO of public transport operator RATP says, Line 14 will serve the Olympics, but the Olympics have served Line 14 well. Number 6 is the first nuclear power plant to be built in the United Kingdom in 30 years. Projections are putting the cost at around $57 billion for this massive piece of energy infrastructure. Hinkley Point C, as it's known, has been under construction since 2016, and once it's operational, it'll provide power to 6 million homes. Unfortunately, the project has been delayed by COVID, Brexit, and cost increases, as well as the long process of adapting a European reactor design to comply with British regulations. As a result,
it's crazy. All of that stuff is just in like one cylindrical tube and housed inside of it. That's really interesting. That's all inside of one column.
Process of adapting a European reactor design to comply with British regulations. As a result, the original $22 billion price tag has long since been abandoned. As things stand, Hinkley Point C is running 4 years behind schedule, with a tentative finish date set for 2031. Coming in at number 5 is the UK's long-troubled high-speed rail line,
$84 billion.
Costs have continued to rise here too, and are currently estimated at $84 billion. The new railway was originally designed to link London with the cities of Birmingham, Manchester, and Leeds, integrating economic hubs across the country. But things haven't really gone to plan, and the lines to Manchester and Leeds have been cut due to spiraling costs and huge delays. Construction was originally due to be finished in 2026, but as things stand, the scaled-back London to Birmingham line won't be ready until sometime between 2029 and 2033.
Wow.
Upgrading British Rail with state-of-the-art high-speed lines is a great idea and would likely boost economic development, but sadly, This project just hasn't gone well at all so far. The original
That seems to be a recurring theme with a lot of these projects. They start off with very ambitious plans and budgets and time frames, and then they all blast past the time frame and the budget by a lot, like a whole lot.
$47 billion estimate has since ballooned to well over $100 billion. So that's why the project had to be scaled down. Removing the northern sections of the line has brought this down to more like $84 billion, but that's still almost twice what was first planned. It's not all bad though. The line will halve the travel time between the UK's two biggest cities to just 49 minutes, and the brand new Curzon Street station in Birmingham will operate with zero emissions and even capture rainwater. Progress is painstakingly slow, but proponents emphasize that high-speed rail will boost development outside London, which currently makes up almost a quarter of the UK's GDP. Next on the list is a Chinese megaproject to build a city of the future. It's known as the Zhong'an area, and it takes the number 4 spot with an estimated budget of $95 billion.
So we're at number 4 and we're already at 95 billion, so we got 3 more to go. I wonder how many of them are going to be, close to the trillion mark, if there's any of them. I mean, that would be a massive budget. I'm guessing that the top 3 are going to be somewhere in the 200 to 300 billion range.
Despite it being one of the most expensive and ambitious projects underway anywhere in the world, it hasn't received much attention yet. Zhong'an will be a smart green city, designed to ease the pressure on an overpopulated Beijing and equipped with advanced systems like digital roads and smart city planning.
Looks really cool.
If there's a fire, for example, the city operations platform will immediately calculate the coverage area and how many people are affected. Then it'll choose a route for the fire service based on current traffic conditions. That's pretty cool and sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie. In true Chinese fashion, the city's been built at record pace. In just 7 years, 3,000 buildings have shot up. They're not all finished yet, but it's still insane how fast they're moving. Drone footage shows an industrial park, technology center, schools, and high-speed railway lines all underway, not to mention countless apartment and office blocks.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but hasn't China developed a lot of these massive cities in other areas of their country that nobody ever really went to use them, and they're sitting there mostly vacant, like massive fully scaled projects like this, but nobody's really living in them? If I'm wrong, let me know in the comments. If I'm right, tell me what the names of those projects are, those cities are, because I feel like I've seen these really large scale projects like this that are just been completely abandoned. I think I may have even seen one like that in and around Dubai or something like that too, but I can't remember because I've watched so many of these types of videos. I don't always remember the fine details sometimes.
Over 1 million people are already living there, but that's set to increase to 5 million by 2035. Things are moving crazy fast on this project, so if you want to see more about it, we'd appreciate it a lot if you'd subscribe to Megabuilds. Thank you so much for your support of our channel. Number 3 is Japan's $100 billion Chuo Shinkansen bullet train. The new line from Tokyo to Osaka will use maglev technology to reach speeds of up to 500 kilometers per hour. Wow. The trains will hover slightly above the track, giving passengers a super smooth ride despite the insane speeds. This train in China uses the same technology, and the coin barely moves at all. The construction is made up of 2 phases, Tokyo to Nagoya and Nagoya to Osaka. The first was due to be ready by 2027, but environmental concerns have recently changed the whole trajectory of the project. 86% of the Tokyo to Nagoya line will run in tunnels, and one of the prefectures along the route, Shizuoka, is concerned that the Oi River will leak into them. As a result, they haven't given their permission for the project to go ahead, so construction's been pushed back, possibly until 2034. That being said, Shizuoka Governor Heita Kawakatsu resigned last month, and it's not impossible that his successor sees another way forward. The second phase extends from Nagoya to Osaka, which is planned for completion by 2037. It promises to cut travel time between Nagoya and Osaka to just 40 minutes. However, as with the first phase, this section will involve extensive tunneling and similar challenges as well, so it remains to be seen how they can solve these issues. At a projected total cost of up to $128 billion, the second biggest megaproject currently under construction is California's high-speed railway. The 1,200-kilometer network will connect major urban hubs across California with state-of-the-art trains running at 350 kilometers per hour. Once it's operational, the journey from San Francisco to Los Angeles will take just 2 hours and 40 minutes, providing a better alternative than flying or driving. If the targets are met, it should reduce air travel journeys by a third and reduce carbon emissions by 3 million tons. The project was first discussed all the way back in 1996, but it wasn't until 2008 that state voters were finally given the chance to approve a proposal. At that stage, the entire LA to San Francisco line was meant to cost $33 billion and be ready by 2020. Unfortunately, legal challenges, environmental reviews, and mismanagement have extended the project considerably. The first section of the line is now expected to open in 2030, but the total cost has spiraled to more than triple the original proposal. And that's not the only issue. Lawsuits, land acquisition, and political and public opposition have all slowed things down. But
California, everything he just listed is what's wrong with California. Too many opposition on everything, too many regulations, the cost of everything goes up. It just seems like everything is always a nightmare there. Not trying to be negative, just California drives me nuts because it's a beautiful state, but it's been in a steady decline on all levels, and it's because of the way that state is being run.
But the people in charge of construction at the High-Speed Rail Authority still believe the project to be worthwhile. High-speed links across California will integrate cities like never before, bringing together businesses, cultures, and people. The network will make it much easier for California.
Earlier in the video, when I mentioned one in California that was having issues, I think it was actually this one that I was talking about. Not that it wouldn't be a good plan, but it's just been riddled with tons of issues and been dragging out forever, and so it's kind of the joke that it's never going to get finished.
Californians to live in the more affordable inland areas and still commute to work in expensive coastal cities. In fact, the network is projected to carry over 28 million passengers a year by 2040, more than double the Northeast Corridor, America's busiest railway today. Progress might be slow, but this megaproject is moving ahead. Alright, we're finally there. That brings us to number 1, and if you've been watching our videos for a while, you probably already know what's coming. At an eye-watering $1.5 trillion, it can only be Saudi Arabia's NEOM. This insane collection of futuristic projects is supposed to transform their desert and coastline. The flagship project is the line, which I'm sure you've already heard about. But recent news is that the line is being scaled back massively. The crazy desert city is ultimately...
I've reacted to a full video on the line. I'm not sure if it's active on my channel anymore. I think they did a copyright claim on me and that video was taken down, but I could be mistaken. So if you're interested in that project, you can try to find it on my channel or just search for it on YouTube, and there's lots of videos about the line. It's a really, really ambitious project. Seems like a pretty cool project, but all of this whole project as a whole, the line is just one part of it. Who knows, in my lifetime if that would get completed or not.
Ultimately supposed to be 170 kilometers long, but a Bloomberg report citing an anonymous source says there will only be 2.4 kilometers of it by 2030. On the initial schedule, the line was meant to have 1.5 million residents by then, but now there may only be about 300,000. The Bloomberg report has been cited all over the internet, but the Saudi finance minister recently contradicted it, saying all NEOM projects will go ahead as planned. Time will tell, but the controversy speaks to underlying issues. NEOM's 2024 budget has had difficulty getting approval, suggesting the harsh financial realities of such an enormous project may be finally setting in. On top of that, high staff turnover points to internal difficulties, and one contractor recently admitted to canceling a $100 million contract with the petrostate. Malcolm Awe, the CEO of Solar Water, said that he had initially come on board to help realize the line's renewable goals, but left when he realized that local villages were being bulldozed to make way for the megaproject. And that's not the first time that human rights abuses have been raised against NEOM. Last year, the UN spoke out over the planned execution of 3 men who had been arrested for resisting forced evictions.
See, that's ridiculous. So, when I reacted to the Houston, the Texas rail thing, and I was saying, I hope that the they can come to an agreement with the people and using the land and allowing it to pass through. That's an agreement's an agreement, and whether that means it costs money or whatever. But just executing people, just straight up executing people or bulldozing towns, that's kind of ridiculous. No matter how cool the project is going to be, it's not right to take those measures.
As far as we know, the sentences haven't been carried out yet, and hopefully they never will. Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030 is a program designed to diversify the country and its economy. Construction is underway on the line and some of NEOM's other projects. Some of them have even tighter deadlines. The mountain resort of Trojena is actually scheduled to host the Asian Winter Games in 2029, and the most recent footage that NEOM released shows the construction is in full swing.
If they can pull off NEOM, it looks like an amazing project, but it is massive.
However, it still looks like there's a lot to be done. And further south, the luxury island resort of Sindala is meant to open later this year. And this is also where the most progress has already been made. NEOM is by far the biggest mega project under construction today. The scale of it all is just mind-blowing, and news is coming out all the time. But what is your opinion about these projects? Do you think the money's being spent wisely? Let us know in the comments down below. And for now, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.
All right, that was a lot of really, really cool projects. I'd like to hear y'all's thoughts on any of them. If you had a favorite, or if you have a personal connection to any of them, if you have helped to construct any of these projects, if you've been able to use any of the completed versions of them or portions of them if they're being released in stages. Yeah, and if you have any suggestions of other similar videos like this I should check out, please tell me in the comments. If you're new here or returning and you're not already subscribed, I encourage you to subscribe to my channel. Please help me out to reach that next milestone in subscribers. And support me with checking out some of my merch. Super basic shirt, phenomenal. You know, nothing wrong with telling people to have a phenomenal day. themelvinshop.com. And like, comment, subscribe, and do all the things. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Later.